he got a good offensive line and a coach in Detroit and L.A. with Andrew Whitworth and Sean McVay. He's been excellent, top 10 since then. And now he's a member of a losing franchise, Detroit. And, I've always had this feeling, because I grew up out west, but then I moved out east, and I liked it. But it was different, and I really noticed the difference in the fans and the media. It's harsher. There is a northern jet stream of negativity. I saw it for 10 years at ESPN. The weather's worse. You're scraping the windshield. Everything's harder in cold weather, and you stay indoors Thanksgiving to April because it's crappy outside. Go to Miami, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Houston, San Diego. If your team's bad, you bail. You go outside. You have cocktails at 4:30. You surf. You do something. The malls, there are even outdoor malls here. That's the reality of it. You bail on bad teams. Now, I do think the advantage to that northern negativity and intensity and tribalism is it's kind of combative and it's kind of fun. Like, I think sports talk radio in your Chicagos and Cleveland's, Detroit, excellent. Out here, it's guy talk. Teams aren't good. Let's move on. Out there, you want to solve the issue and yell about the issue. So there's a reason it's called the Bills Mafia and not the Carolina Panthers Mafia or the Arizona Cardinals Mafia. Studies indicate that the more time you spend outdoors with nature, you live longer. But I will say Jared Goff's point is Detroit has a history of losing, and we know about the lousy weather. And so I think it's a real thing. I think it is hard when a bad culture suddenly gets really good. I think Detroit, and I said this last year, I think they're the younger version of the 49ers. Stars everywhere. They're just not paid yet and not quite as old. But I think toe-to-toe, the two best rosters easily in the NFC, easily, are San Francisco and Detroit. I like Green Bay's. It's not as good as the Lions. A lot of that's the front office. A lot of that's trades, hitting on draft picks. But, I mean, it's funny about Detroit. My wife's from Michigan. You listen to Eminem. I don't think optimism and hope. There is a negativity that exists out there, and I saw it when I lived out east. I feel it's much more laid back and positive, optimistic out west. Some of that is because California teams have done well for the last decade. But I think Jared Goff is onto something. You get that bad weather, that intensity, you're indoors, winter and spring, you stick with your bad teams, you complain about them, and Goff's trying to say, guys, this is a really good team. We're not going to lose anymore. Like, it's going to be nothing but wins. Hi, everybody.
So, okay, I really wanted to do that clip, talk about this because I have personal experience. I lived on both the East Coast and the West Coast, I'm from Philadelphia, like one of the biggest, most die-hard sports cities in the country, whether you like Philly or not, like it's an indisputable fact. And then I lived in San Diego, which is just, an incredibly laid back, especially sports city. Now, the one flag that I want to plant is that people out west are not necessarily nicer in general than they are out east. I think maybe with sports fans they are, but people are just as... When I moved out west, I was expecting people to be so nice, and I couldn't wait, because I was like, oh, I'm going to meet people everyone's just going to be so nice and chill and laid back, and that was not my experience at all, okay? I was single and dating, and I was meeting people, meeting girls, and they were just as great and just as awful as they were out east. The only difference is that there's a lot more like bikini pictures because you have access to the beach all the time and stuff. But there is truth, getting, when you're talking about now specifically to sports, it's like if your team doesn't do well or they lose, it is a different experience when you now say, oh my God, that was a rough loss. And then you go outside and it's 80 degrees out and beautiful versus, the Eagles losing and, we were watching the game with my family and they lose. And then it's Monday and it's 20 degrees out, freezing cold. And you're just like, oh my God, it's getting dark early and all that type of stuff. So it can definitely compound. But on the other side, when things are positive and things are going well, it's one of the most insane experiences ever. I mean, it's just like, it feels like the whole world has stopped, because you're in this bubble, in Philly, just even a couple years ago when they were just even in the Super Bowl. I mean, it was insane. Those 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, everywhere you went, and whether it's like the actual city itself or any of the suburbs around it, everyone is decked out in Eagles gear. Just top to bottom, 24/7. Everyone's talking about it. It's all anyone can talk about, no matter what you're doing. Whether you're going to the grocery store, you're running errands. I was getting a lot of blood drawn during that time, very randomly. And, the people who are drawing blood, they're wearing like Eagles gear, talking about it. You're excited about the game, in a couple weeks or this week, whatever time, and it was just like, it's just there. Out in the West, it just doesn't have that same energy. Of course there's fans, of course there's plenty of jerseys and all of that, but it is different. The intensity is different. And I can speak to the negativity of the media that Goff, for those of you who don't know, Goff, was on a podcast or had a podcast, and he was talking about how that the Detroit media is just very negative and that they relish in the negativity. And he's like, listen, we're a good team. You don't have to do that. Like we're a good team now. And I get what he's saying, where he's coming from. But, the Eagles, I forget exactly. They started off as like 10-0 or 11-0 this past season, whatever it was, 11-1. I forget exactly, but obviously it was technically a good start. And now I was saying, listen, they're not as good as their record looks. And, I was kind of saying that again and again and again. And if you go and you, although you could still say, hey, look, they're in first place, second place, they're a great team. Look what they're doing. They were just in the Super Bowl last year. We'll get things going. But post-game live, which is like post-game live for the Philadelphia Eagles now, not the general post-game. I mean, like specifically Philadelphia media, as well as on the radio and any other type of stuff, was just endless ripping them apart, ripping Sirianni apart, ripping the OC and the DC, ripping Jalen Hurts. Like it was just endless. Like what the heck. And even though they're winning, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champions, still not good enough. So the expectations are just so much higher and more intense. And I don't like it, actually. Like it's really annoying. I don't listen to the local radio and the local, post-game live. Like maybe after they win, like if it's like a big moment, I like to maybe marinate in some biased stuff, because if they do win like a playoff game or they're winning a Super Bowl, of course, it's fun to watch because then it's a lot richer. Especially for baseball. The Phillies have been on a couple good runs these last couple seasons, and that's really fun to just kind of, absorb that moment. But especially some of the aftermath, like the Monday talk shows and stuff like that, it is a lot of negativity. And it's just, the expectations are just so high. And that's why, as Jason Kelsey put it, Philly just wants its players to feel like they care and that they're giving it all. And I think Lane Johnson has said that as well. And I think that's probably the same for a lot of these other cities like Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland. They just want to feel that the players truly care, that when they lose, they feel the same pain that the fans feel, or that they are really giving it their all to try to win a championship. Everyone just wants to feel connected to the experience. And I do think it's sad. Like I'm not in touch with Detroit's media, so anyone who has, who is a true Lions fan, who's, being exposed to, their post-game lives and stuff like that, I am curious, because I thought them getting to the NFC Championship game was amazing and was so exciting and awesome, and something that you should just be that you should be relishing in, that you should be marinating in, and just saying, you know what, even though we didn't win, even though we could have won, we could have beaten the 49ers, we could have gotten to the Super Bowl, and then we beat the Chiefs, the first week, which means we had a chance to technically beat them in the Super Bowl. Like, I get it, but like still just being happy. The Eagles lost in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, and I was still happy. I judge successes based off of getting to the NFC Championship games and winning, the NFC Championship games. The Super Bowl is icing on the cake because it's brutally hard, but it's like, I've been very lucky that I've been a fan of the Eagles, and for years they've always consistently made it to NFC Championship games, won NFC Championship games. They've had that success. So that's how I personally judge success, and I just know how football goes, that it's my God, anything can happen. Who would have ever thought Christian McCaffrey was going to fumble, what was he at, like the 30, about to score, the Chiefs couldn't stop him that drive, and boom, the fumble off of the, the punt return, Greenlaw getting injured. There's just all these things that can happen. So I just don't hold anyone's feet to the fire for one singular game. So, to me, I look at Detroit as a positive, but I understand why the media is also a little upset as well, because they're like, we've been waiting so long. This was our chance, and we may never get that chance again, because it is so hard. You hear all the ex-players talk about it. Ex-players who have actually played for a long period of time, thinking early in their career they reach a Super Bowl or an NFC championship game or an AFC championship game, they lose, and they say, okay, next year we're going to do it. And they never do it again. Greg Jennings has talked about that. He talked about, like, we were going to go to multiple Super Bowls, win Super Bowls, we got this. And then it never happened. Never happened again. That's what happens. That's how brutal football can be. Even if you're on this dynastic team, it can still be brutally hard. You still need a lot of things to unfold in very perfect ways, quite honestly. So even the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty, like, they could have lost to the Bills. They could have lost to the Ravens. They could have lost to the 49ers. These are all one-score games. Some of them 3 points. It's just, all you do is just need the ball to roll slightly different, and then you lose. And then instead of having 3 Super Bowls, you only have 1 Super Bowl. It just completely changes everything. When you have 7-game series, like in basketball, that doesn't happen as much. Or if it does happen, it's just for a game or 2 games. But it's hard for that to happen 4 games. So I think football, that's what kind of raises the stakes. So I can see why the fans were let down, because they're thinking, this is our year, oh my God. And then it's so deflating when it doesn't happen. But, if I was a born and raised Detroit fan, I would be content. I would be, okay, next year. Now, if they aren't able to get back to the NFC Championship game next year, and they aren't able, because they're a young team. It's one thing if they built this team like the Jets, where it's like, okay, we have like 1 year to do this, and if it doesn't happen, we're done, because everyone is just hanging on by a thread, either because of their age or because of injury history. Then I could understand it. I can understand if the Jets don't win, then people would be upset. Totally get that. But with Detroit, they built something. So they're allowed to have their growing pains. When the Chiefs got assembled, they didn't automatically just start winning Super Bowls. They got beat. They got beat badly a couple of times. Spectacularly. So I would just say that Detroit has a lot to look forward to. They should be really excited. And the negativity could, in theory, start next season if they don't make it to the NFC Championship game, depending on how it unfolds, right? If it's a heartbreaking loss that was just terrible luck or just terrible circumstance, it's like, okay, that sucks. But if they're, in the wild card round, they're the Dallas Cowboys and they get blown out by the Packers, now bring on the negativity. I could understand that, right? Then you could start saying, is Dan Campbell the guy? Do we need to fire him? Whatever. Should Ben Johnson be hired? So I just think that if you're Detroit, you should feel pretty good right now, and the negativity should definitely be held off. Because if you can't, appreciate that you made it to an NFC Championship game for, and won a playoff game for the first time in 30 years, oof, that's a tough one. That is definitely a tough one. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I read every single comment. So let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe. We read I'm getting all over the place. Let me rewind back. Okay? Let me try this one more time. Those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community here. And I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. And I think we're well on our way to doing it. Thank you so much. See you next time.